As a fan of ultra running, I've developed a question over the years, which is potentially being answered every time I dig a little bit deeper. So even though the sport is growing and the opportunity of ultra running is even greater and probably at the greatest level that it has been so far, the question of that environment and the exposure to the trail and the mountains is clearly becoming a massive advantage in our sport. Hello and welcome to the Ultra Running Podcast with me, Coach Marsh. I hope you're all well and I hope your training's going well. Do keep commenting on our podcast and let us know, because it's good to follow your journeys, because those of you that are now regularly commenting on episodes about how you're getting on, it's nice to follow where you're at. In terms of my own journey, that injury is starting to really sort itself out now, and I'm starting to slowly increase those miles. If you're interested in the journey back to ultra running, then please go over to the Coach Marshy YouTube channel. But for today, back onto ultra running, and let's welcome today's guest in to the studio. So, hello, Charlie. How are you, Charlie?
Good morning. Yeah, I'm good, thank you.
Good. It's great to have you on the show, mate. Let's just explain to the guys. I'll give a real quick explanation. We met by complete chance at the UTS in 2022 in Wales. You guys were about to do the 100K, and I think it was the night before that we met, and you guys were polite enough and kind enough to be collared to do the opening segment of the UTS special on location episode. So firstly, thanks to you guys for doing that, you, Ree and Jack. That was really appreciated.
No
welcome to the show, mate. You're new to podcasting, so this is probably the first time you've done it. Let's settle you down then and get you to tell us and the listeners who you are, where you're from, what you do sort of as a day job, what your involvement in running is, and let us know a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so my name is Charlie Allington. I live in North Wales and have done for about the last 11 years. I work as an outdoor instructor, part-time outdoor instructor, part-time carpenter. And so that's kind of my day job, working with youngsters mainly, the sort of things like canoeing, kayaking, climbing, going on the hill, co-steering, sea level traversing, gorge walking, and kind of all those sorts of activities. So we're very on my feet job. But at the same time, like I say, I do a bit of carpentry work on the side just to get a bit of a breath from working with kids. Got into running probably about 15 years ago when I was at university, through cycling and triathlon more than anything. So I followed that triathlon scene, did a few Ironman races around the 2013, 2014 sort of time. Kind of fell out of love with that a bit. Not the best swimmer. I'm an okay cyclist, but kind of always really loved the running, and kind of then focused in more on the half marathon kind of thing, and that kind of ventured into the more mountainous fell running side of things, and that's kind of where the ultra running kind of came in probably about 3, 4, 5 years ago, really. And ever since then, I've been kind of taking it slightly more seriously, but never too seriously. So that's kind of now.
Yeah. So let's unpack that a little bit, because there's lots that I want to talk about and lots that I want to ask you, but specifically about some of the bits you've just said there. So mine and your journey in terms of maybe how we then transition from triathlon to ultra running is sort of at the same sort of time I did Ironman in 2015. So I hear you about the falling out of love bit with triathlon. I think for me, there was a lot of hours go into it, but I really loved the endurance side of it. So like the long haul, the long day out, if you like. Would you say there were similarities there for you?
The training's hard. I found I was losing time with friends a little bit. It's the early hours, the early, falling asleep on your mate's sofa kind of thing when you're meant to be at a social event, and 3 events is quite heavy. And so, I like running because you can pick it up and go. You don't need to plan so much. You can do it in all weathers. It's cheaper. It's just what I enjoy, really. I think the triathlon thing, it gets a bit, gets quite elite, I think. And like I say, you know, you need a spaceship of a bike and all sorts of things like that. I like the simplicity of running. It's right on my doorstep. I think it's easier on the body, and there's less to think about technically. And so I think it's a bit more of a pure natural sport, and I think that's what I love about it. And also it's the mountains what I love really. Getting out on the hill, and triathlon can be not quite as accessible in that sense. There are plenty of races, but not quite to the extent that fell running in North Wales is.
Yeah, and I think yeah, I hear what you're saying about the training and the falling asleep on your mate's sofa. I get it. I think when you're in that world, there is a lot of planning go into it and a lot of sacrifice into the everyday life that you're talking about there. And
Yeah,
I'd completely agree with you about the transition, you know, the running simplicity of running, and that you can just fall out the front door, which we are going to talk to you specifically about in a minute as well. So let's rewind a little bit. I sort of mentioned there that we met at UTMB, UTS, Ultra Trail Snowdonia by UTMB. So tell us a bit about that event. We met before the event. We then didn't see each other again, which was a shame, but it would have been nice to have followed up with you guys, but I had to shoot off before you guys had probably even finished. So talk to me about that weekend. What was it like?
It was, well, if in all honesty, I had an absolutely brilliant weekend. You know, you can go into these races with quite a lot of trepidation. Am I going to even finish, let alone, you know, get around in the time I'd like to? But myself and my other half, Ree, who, as you said, ran the race as well, we'd done an awful lot of time recceing the route. You know, it's all on my doorstep, it's all my back garden. And having previously recceed routes, I think there's a massive benefit to knowing exactly where you're going, exactly how much you've got left, understanding the terrain and the vertical ascent and all those sorts of things. And it's where I work. It's where I do all my running anyway. So a massive draw to the event for me was the fact it is my back garden, and I know the route very well, and I was able to kind of pick the route apart and kind of compartmentalize each leg of the run, and just being able to run locally is such an advantage. You know, I can sleep in my own bed before the race. I know the whole route well. I know the base camp. I knew people at the base camp, and I just felt like it's a really comfortable race in that sense. Another massive draw was the UTMB points, the stones, because it's always been a lifelong goal to go to Europe and you know, race the biggest race as far as I am concerned. And I just wanted to do a big, hard race local to myself. And so the UTS was an absolute obvious choice.
Yeah, I mean, a bit of feedback from my end, because I was absorbing as much as I could, and recently spoke to Josh Wade, who won the 100K as well that day. And it was interesting because it sounds like the trail potentially at Snowdon may be slightly more technical than some of the parts of the actual UTMB race.
Yeah, I get that impression. There are a few places what are proper rough and rugged and tough. I believe a lot of the UTMB route is fairly manicured trail. But again, this only attracts me to the race more because that's kind of probably where I'm at my strongest, is kind of the far more techy ground, coming from like a climbing, scrambling, like mountain background. That's definitely where I see my strengths. So you know, if that's an edge over my competitor, then I'll absolutely jump on that.
Yeah, and we'll sort of dive into that. So let's take me, right. Got my own gym, live in flat Cambridgeshire, and my skill set is to help people lose weight and get stronger. Your day-to-day life and your skill set that you have with what you're doing in all of that sort of coaching and leading is, in my opinion, a great stepping stone and sort of basic skills to have when it comes to being an ultra runner as well. Do you agree?
Absolutely. What I do day in, day out is immediately transferable to the racing scene. For example, working in the mountains, you have the mountain leader qualification, and this is all about looking after yourself, how to feed well, how to pace yourself, how to navigate the mountains, learning how to attack a mountain, if you like, talking about things like line of least resistance, using ridge lines, understanding weather. All these things are, great for planning big days out and getting out on the hill. And as far as I'm concerned, training for a race, there's no better training you can do than actually going and doing the route itself. When I used to climb, I used to like the idea that I could go in the gym, and if I can do 20 pull-ups, then I'm going to be better on a climbing wall. But I don't think it quite works like that. I think you need to be doing the very thing that you want to get strong at, to be strong at it. If you want to run a fast, flat half marathon, well, then you need to be running fast, flat roads. To be doing something like the UTS, which has got 23,000 feet of ascent in it, your training needs to be on the mountain, on the hill, doing those big climbs over and over again. There's nothing that's going to get you faster and fitter and stronger than the actual terrain that you're racing.
Yeah, no, that specificity is really important. And when I met you guys and we asked that question, and I said, "Oh, where you from?" Thinking you were about to tell me that you've driven for hours, and you were like, "Oh, just round the corner." Living in that environment is always going to be great, because I was talking to Josh last episode, and here in Cambridge, when I have been up at sort of a 90-mile training week, I'm lucky if I've got 1,000 feet of elevation, because it's just that flat. But outside your front door, I'm guessing you go for a 5K and you get quite a bit of elevation.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I have to, if anything, it's kind of the opposite for me. Is like, sometimes I want an easy run and I have to seek coastal runs and to get that more recovery based run, because if I run from home, it's immediately uphill, and you can't help but run on the trails. Like, running on the roads where I live is relatively dangerous because there's no path.
Yeah.
I live in a small village, no shops, and to get anywhere you have to drive. And so the running from here for me is absolutely ideal. It's straight out of my head.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. I like the idea of that, and I'm going to ask you a few more bits on that in a second. But back to the UTS, probably about the time that you were reaching the top of Snowdon to come down for the last time, I believe the weather got pretty warm.
The weather was great. It was a nice contrast between it had the atmosphere to it. It was cooler on the tops. It was hotter in the valleys. So you got it changing up, never too much. I deal pretty well in most conditions. I'm good. I'm good with knowing what kit I've got, how to use it, and I'm pretty savvy. Again, due to working in the outdoors, I'm pretty savvy to knowing if you're cold, there's no point saving your layer. You need to put your layer on to stop yourself getting more cold. And like I say, good windproofs, good waterproofs, and they make a difference. They can be lifesavers.
Yeah, and that exposure that you have daily to that, you're doing that and you're teaching others that.
Yeah, it's looking out for the warning signs, I guess. I'm pretty quick at it's as a colleague of mine says, 1 stitch in time saves 9. It's about seeing that. It's the same with food. You need to be eating when you're not hungry, kind of thing.
Yeah.
You need to put your jacket on before you need it. It's that kind of, it's being savvy, and I think you only get that from just doing it a lot, and that experience, that exposure to it on a regular basis.
Yeah, and if we just rewind to your answer on the UTS special episode, on location episode, you said, just to quote you, I'll paraphrase though, you said you were thinking about the guys that had been out on the 165 that had obviously been cancelled, and you're glad that you weren't out there on the 165. The weather was pretty dire on that Friday night, but by the time you guys started at 4 a.m, it would kind of I think it had just about calmed down a little bit.
It was still raining, but the wind had completely dropped. Those guys were, it wasn't meant to be as bad as it was. And I remember sitting in the valley when we were on sign up and thinking the weather was pretty crap there. To be, 900 meters up at, on an exposed ridge will have been real hard going into the night, and, night falling, having been out on the trail for 8, 9, 10 hours, it will have been really, really, really hard on the body and the mind. So I can see why they pulled it. I would have been gutted if I was them, but they did it. At the end of the day, their job is first and foremost to keep everyone safe. So it was the right decision. But we lucked out in the sense that our weather was a lot better.
But did it leave the trail perhaps different to what you might have thought in July? Was it wetter?
I actually didn't wear the shoes I was intending on wearing, so I wore a heavier lug. Usually I would have gone with a more alpine shoe, but I wore a deeper treaded fell shoe for the whole race, and I think that's a massive advantage because a lot of the downhills were very wet, and I did overtake quite a lot on the downhills. So yeah, I knew what to expect again from just experience, I guess.
Yeah, no, and I can see how that would have massively been an advantage for you, not just in the decisions at the start and before you left, but actually in the actual decisions out there en route on the day as well. So, had you been to the event before, or was that the first year you did it?
No, first year at the event, first UTMB series event. No, I obviously been to the location, but I've not attended a UTMB event before.
And we're not associated to them in any way. Mike has been on the show, and he was kind enough to give us a media pass on the day, which we're very grateful for. But sort of anything for the listeners about how it was ran as an event and the organisation and the setup there?
Oh, it was brilliant. It felt very professional, very slick. You can see that it's the brand. Just things from like the archway, the stage, the prize giving, even like to the aid stations. The amount of toilets you've got accessible to you, the quality of the food. Like it's you go to a lot of race events and you get your cheap cola, for example. I'm like I say, I'm good at the hydration thing, and I always buy Coca-Cola because it's got full fat sugar. And it's the proper Coca-Cola. It's little things like that you really do notice. It's very well staged. The prizes, my other half got second in the female category, and she won a beautiful ceramic vase locally made in Llanberis. And just it's little things like that really make a difference. So it was a beautiful event. It was very well put together.
Yeah, no, I was gonna ask really quickly on Ree because I'm hoping she does come on as well and have a chat about her own experiences.
She's real keen, of course, yeah.
But like you say, she came second that day. And how did it go for her? Just briefly.
Again, so well. She had an absolutely brilliant day. I think she was very much like it was the longest event she'd done, so she was very much all about getting to the end. And yeah, she had an absolute whopper of a day. Paced it very well. Enjoyed it a lot more than she expected. I think the suffering didn't kind of take over too much. She's a smart girl, and she's tough as they come. So for her, I never had any doubts. She obviously would have done, but no, she had as good a day as I did. We both loved
brilliant.
It.
So where does that leave you both with Chamonix? What are you putting your name in the hat for yourself?
Well, she's gone and bloody well got herself an automatic entry, hasn't she? Because she got second place. So she's on CCC. I've got to.
And is that for this year? Does she get CCC this year?
No, it's that's in about 3 weeks, I think, isn't it?
Yeah. So it's for next year.
She's taking next year. And so I've got to make my application. So myself and Jack, who we did the run with, who I began the race with, we're both going to apply to do the UTMB, so the full distance. Whether I get a place or not is just down to the luck of God, I guess.
but I guess you're going to get to go there anyway next year, hopefully.
Yeah, I just bloody hope I'm going there to run and not support. As much as I would support, I'd do it through gritted teeth. I'm not sure how well I'd do that.
Be a lot of FOMO there, would there?
There would be a fat slice of FOMO, yeah.
Yeah, I get it. I totally get it. And you know what a place it looks like on the, you know, my experience of Chamonix is probably similar to a lot of ultra fans and runners is via YouTube, and the sort of eight deep in the crowd kind of thing. The idea of being a runner there one day is just, you know, some of the sights at the top of those peaks, and you know, some of the trail, it just looks amazing. But you know, can we get there? Hopefully we can. And does this new system allow that?
It is dreamy, isn't it? I've spent quite a lot of time in the Alps skiing, and I've been to Chamonix a fair few times. And just it's just massive. It's just big and scary, and proper as you can get in Europe. So yeah, it is the goal for good reason.
Yeah, my education of the qualifying process and how that changed, but mainly came through Mike, the race director of UTS, and then I did get to meet Katrin on the day at UTS as well, who is the founder of UTMB or co-founder, and they were kind of explaining why they've done what they've done and the World Series and all these events, and I like it, and that might be because I like Ironman and I like the idea that although we're a close community and we like to be supportive and we like people to get involved, the reason I like this qualification process and this, to use a phrase, commercialization of the sport, is because it's got to be hard. You know, if everyone could do this, then it would be easy and everyone would do it. But it's not designed to be easy. It's not designed to be that way. It's not what UTMB has ever been about. It is hard. It does require a lot of dedication, a lot of work. And I quite like this step that's been taken by UTMB. It might not be fully clear what that step is yet, but the steps that they're showing that they've taken and this little bit of commercialization, I think it's probably going to help the grassroots more than it is going to hinder it. But I just wondered if you had any thoughts.
I don't know. Again, this is somewhere I'm not the smartest. I don't know the massive change it's taken. I know it used to be UTMB points, which you had to accumulate. I think you had to accumulate 11 to apply to UTMB over 3 races, and the harder the race that you do as a qualifier, the more points you got. I think first and foremost, it's important that the people entering the race are up to standard. There's no use people turning up who are going to have half a punt that have a very, very small chance of getting to the finish line. It's a big test. The races are huge. They're hard. And I think it's only fair that the people on the start line are people who have the ability to get to the finish line. Whether they do or not is obviously down to the day, where they're at in their training, etc. But I think you have to earn the right to get to the start line. It has to be. You have to be selected in a sense. It's dangerous otherwise. And also, you know, I think it does put an emphasis on those who deserve the place most get the place. It's someone like myself who's done a lot of running, quite a lot of ultras now, and got a fair amount of experience in it. I think I am ready. And you know, these qualifying UTMB series races is your interview in a sense to get you to that start line.
Yeah, no, I like that. That's a great answer and a great perspective, I think. And yeah, something that I agree with actually wholly. I think, you know, the idea that you now have gone through a process, if you like, and you can sit there and say, I feel ready to go. You know, both having been on the start line of an Ironman, you don't just turn up to Ironman. You do a half Ironman, you do sprint, you do Olympic distance, you do lots of transition work from long swims to long bike rides to long runs. You do a lot of time and effort in that, and I think the ultra world is the same, especially when you're going up Snowdon, and from what I understand, scrambling up Snowdon at times as well.
Definitely, yeah. You know, it puts you through paces. It's if you've got UTS on your CV, then that says a lot about you as a runner, I think.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I like that. I like that answer a lot, and I think actually, if the guys listen to this from UTS, they'll love that answer as well. I'll see what Mike thinks, and we're going to get him back on the show hopefully, and we can hopefully talk to Mike Jones again and talk about how it went and what he thinks about that transition now. So just a couple more things on where you live and your day-to-day life. That obviously has a massive, as we've touched on, a massive kind of transferable skill set. So you're pretty active. You're getting a bit of conditioning in your day-to-day life as well, right?
Yeah, I think so. One thing I think about it's good for is that kind of all-round fitness. Part of me thinks like if I had a more sedate job, then I'd get better rest and recovery between my training. But I think the kind of the lugging bags, the moving canoes, the motivating kids a lot of the time, and just that very active on my feet kind of work, it is helpful, I think. But I think it's more of an over a more all-round kind of fitness, and yeah, I think it does help. Just it keeps.
Yeah.
I think more than anything, I think it keeps me fit in the sense that injury prevention. It kind of, like I say, it's that all-round strength rather than a running strength, and I think that helps quite a bit. Especially, I feel the difference when it's off season in the outdoor world. I do notice a couple of pounds going on, whereas when I'm busy working full time at the centre, then yeah, I do lean up a bit. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think the whole idea of strength and conditioning within running and injury prevention and doing preventative stuff and proactive stuff rather than reactive stuff to injury is something that I am really passionate about in my day job, and something that my running club would say they're bored of hearing from me about, in terms of that real S&C strength and conditioning. Having spoke to a couple of elite runners, it was interesting to get their perspective because I didn't really know how much gym work they really were or weren't doing.
Okay.
In terms of yourself, are you doing any sort of specific kind of squatting or lunging or anything like that? Any of that type of stuff?
If I'm honest, I wish I did. I wish I did more. I would like that. I would like that resistance-based training, and like you say, the more strength-based training. I don't enjoy it very much. I run first and foremost because I enjoy it. I love getting out on the hill. Being in the home or being in the gym for me isn't particularly what I enjoy doing. So I don't do as much as I'd like. I do quite a lot of dynamic stretching, warming up. I usually do 5, 10, sometimes 15 minutes warming up. Like I say, very, very dynamic based stretching kind of. I stay away from the static stretching. It's very movement based. Just kind of opening up muscle groups, triggering kind of. It gets. I don't know how sciencey or how airy fairy this gets, but I believe quite a lot in the neurological connection between firing up your muscles and then going out and using them. So I think a lot of movement based opening your muscle groups before you're using them is absolutely key. And I do try my hardest to warm down as well, and and I guess you'd call it a yoga Pilates-esque acro yoga kind of approach to it without the spiritual side of things. I don't buy into that. It's very much about the physiological kind of side of things for me. But as for strength and resistance training, I do very little.
Yeah, no, it's a really interesting conversation and to get your perspective as well. Because if we tie it all in, and I would say, I think I'd like to think my clients would say that I'm quite a holistic trainer. So we look at the whole picture and actually thinking about what you're doing day to day. And, you talk about the couple of extra pounds sneaking on and whatever. And then you're leaning up when you're doing more of it and you're more active again. And then you talk about that kind of, the activation of those muscle fibers that you're using within running. Now, if we go for a little run down the street and it's nice and flat, it's probably not that important, to be honest. It is important that we're warm, but your range of motion, for example, isn't as crucial, right? But if you're starting off on a flat at, the Slate Museum, running down the road, and then within a mile or so, you're then starting to really, go up an ascent and you're going to climb. Essentially, those activations have to be there. Otherwise, you're definitely going to get injured. So from my kind of sports science background, I would be like, yeah, what a great approach Charlie has. That's brilliant. Like, people could learn from that. That's quite tangible in my book, because you're going to get injured if you don't do that activation. I'm pretty certain that most runners that are picking up injuries is because they're not activating muscles. They're not warm. They're going too hard too soon, or too fast too soon, or whatever, because they haven't potentially warmed up, essentially.
I totally see what you're saying. I think that's what really draws me to fell running. In the old days, when I used to run the half marathons and the triathlon based stuff, like you said, you don't have that range of motion. It's more of a kind of repetitive movement, essentially, that you just repeat over and over and over again. Whereas fell running is so much more dynamic. You're recruiting so many more muscle fibers, tendons, ligaments, muscles, etc., because of the ever-changing environment. I think I like that. I like how it breaks up the mind as well. For me, going out and running round a track or running a flat marathon, I don't enjoy that pain. I like the idea of fell running because, great, you get a hill and you can have a cheeky walk and slow the pace down, allow your heart rate to rest, and you get a big descent, gravity assisted, and then, like you say, you get the scrambling, so that keeps your mind busy. And like you say, physically, it's activating far more in your body. And I think, that is better for you because you're not working the same muscle groups really, really hard and strenuously. But also, it's I like the word holistic that you use. It's a much more holistic use of your body, I think. But the warming up, I'm a big fan of it. I can tell when I go for a run if I've warmed up, because I'm more free, I'm more open. I feel like my body is more able to recruit the muscles. Whereas if I don't do those warm-ups, I'm not ready for it, or if I haven't recovered well from a previous run, if I hadn't stretched on my previous run, or I hadn't eaten well, then I do feel I can feel that in my body with restricted movement, essentially.
Yeah. No, I love it. Totally agree. I'm not a preachy coach, but to all of our regular listeners, I'm pretty certain that all of our guests aren't wrong. So I think if our guests are all saying this and they've all got this experience in ultra running and whatever, I think for all of our listeners out there, there's some really good, tangible stuff there that Charlie's saying around that. And I think listen to that again and let it sink in that how important that is from a coaching perspective. For me, it's really important. And, cheers, Charlie, for that perspective, because, we're not here to preach, but we are here to try and educate or give a platform for people to say what it is they do and how it can help others. And actually, how many of our guests have got to come on before people really start to understand how important this is to sort of their running and, different perspectives. But actually, you're all saying the same thing about that kind of being ready and knowing that you're ready for a run. I think that's really important. So cool. We're just going to move on a little bit now. So I've got a question for you. If we look at your Instagram and we look at Ree's Instagram, in your bio, you've got @Dynafit.
Yes.
So what is Dynafit? Who are Dynafit? What's your link to Dynafit? And is that t-shirt you've got on Dynafit?
It is, yes, of course it is, not promo and everything, of course. So Dynafit is a European brand. I believe it started up in the 70s. And if people have heard of it, it's probably on ski slopes in France, Italy, those sorts of places. But it's a brand that's, over the last maybe 5 or 6 years, is kind of widening its market to a more alpine, long distance running market. They do a lot of what's known as ski mountaineering. They do a lot of Nordic skiing. They predominantly, previously, they made mainly skis and boots, and bindings and those sorts of things. But as I say, they're branching out and have been for a good few years now. They've got some top runners under their name. I'm not saying I'm one of them, But there's
you
a
can be
big
one of
team.
them, Charlie. You can be one of them. That's
I
fine.
could be one day, maybe. For example, Hannes Hamburg, I think his name is something along those lines. He came 5th at the UTMB last year, and there's big names, and so it's for me, it's an off-road running brand for which I believe the term is ambassador or supported runner. So I got to know Dynafit through a close friend of mine, Angus McKendrick, who is based in Kendal. He is a rep. He's the British rep for Dynafit. He also reps for Soleva. Soleva being another Italian brand based in the Dolomites, who make mainly boots, tents, hardware, and climbing equipment. I believe they supply for the mountain rescue in the Lake District as well. And so, yeah, Angus is a close friend of mine, and he was asked by his bosses, I believe, to put together a team of runners to start promoting the kit through the UK. So people like myself wear the kit, talk about the kit, and use the kit, and hopefully get a bit of awareness for who Dynafit are, because I still get a lot of people who don't know what Dynafit is, but Angus supplies me with everything I need with regards to running, from shoes, shorts, my Gore-Tex waterproofs, my running vest, my poles, hats, gloves, anything and everything I need to go on the hill. Angus supplies us. So yes, and I would no longer wear anything else. I don't think. It's absolutely fantastic kit.
Well, my feedback is it looks nice from what I've looked into and what I can see there. I've got a lot of questions actually, because there's two angles to this really. A is these brands, yes, okay, they become big brands, but like your friend Angus lives in Kendal, so is obviously exposed to this sort of world and the outdoors and the Lake District and whatever else, and people are doing this with passion as well. It's not a money-making scheme, is it? It's passion. They've got to make money. They've got to pay the bills. I get that. But it's because they've got a passion about what the kit is for, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And now more than ever, I think making money through these companies and brands is a very, very tough thing to do. It's made by people who use it. I think and you can see that. Like I say, you can only buy Dynafit online in the UK or from Cribgoch in the shop in Llanberis, which are only just beginning to sell the stuff. And so it's not a big brand. I don't think that's going to take over the world. It is for runners, and I think that's what I really like about it. It's not one of these brands that was once upon a time, for example, a climbing brand that has now become very high street. It's a brand made for running, for the people that go out and use it. And
I've got no shame, mate, because I used to work for Sports Direct. Let's hope Mike Ashley doesn't come along and try and buy it. It is the simple way that I would put it.
Sell for that sort of thing. They want to keep it for the market that it is. They put their hard work into making kit that really works. Not necessarily that kit that would go down the high street. I mean, it would do. It's real jazzy, shiny, European-looking kit. But it's made for the hill. It's made for empowering you to do what you need it to do. And I wear this kit in sometimes fairly tricky circumstances, out in bad weather, on ridgelines, high in mountains where you're not necessarily within close proximity to safety. So having kit that you can rely on, know that's going to keep you warm, safe, dry, is absolutely paramount. And so I'm incredibly lucky to have this relationship with Angus and the brand, because it does what I need it to do, and I have every faith that it looks after me.
Yeah, and I think that's the first and foremost is when you're kit checking or kit listing, for these big events, you need to know that what you've got will do the job that it's meant to do, because like you've pointed out earlier on in the episode, there are dangerous conditions where you need to potentially read what's going on around you in the environment, and actually the first port of safety is going to be what you're wearing and what you've got to assist you in that, right?
Absolutely. I wouldn't wear it if I didn't have absolute faith in it. You need to know that what's in your bag is going to do its job. At the end of the day, the most important thing is you coming back in good shape. Having fun, doing well, going fast. All those things are great, but first and foremost is those things aren't going to happen if your kit's not working. And I've worked in the outdoors for coming up 15 years now, and I know what's good kit and I know what's bad kit. And I wouldn't wear the stuff on my back if it didn't look after me. And like I say, I've every faith in what's on my feet, what's on my front, and what's in my bag.
Yeah, no, it's good to hear. And just from a more kind of, you mentioned off screen before we started that you're not the biggest tech guy in the world, and you think you mentioned it on the episode as well that you're not the biggest tech guy in the world. But just for anyone who's listening who is kind of maybe I'm in ultra running, and we do this podcast because I'm a fan, and I had a long period of injury where I couldn't participate. So my answer is to interview people like yourself and learn as much as I can and produce a platform for others to absorb from. That's why I'm
Absolutely.
there. But there are some runners that,
Brilliant.
and there's runners out there, Charlie, that are in it to be brand ambassadors. So just give us a bit of insight, the way your ambassador work, your sort of agreement works. Are you just, as you've said, just given some kit to try out, and then you have to kind of just say, like, talk about it to people, or do you have to do specific postings about it?
Like I said, I think I'm possibly one of the luckiest people on the planet with regards to this, because I'm not an elite runner. I do quite well. I work really hard. I put big miles in when I need to, but I don't think I'm ever going to be that person that ever takes that extra step to win the big races. And I don't think I want to do that. I'm passionate about running. I love running. I love getting on the hill. I love being in the mountain. And for me, it's all about enjoyment. So to be approached by Angus and said, "Will you be an ambassador for Dynafit?" is just an absolute, I landed on my feet. It's not why I do it, but to have had it is, like I said, I'm over the moon, and I kind of feel like, when's this going to end? Because it's dreamy to have the kit. Like I said, there's 7 or 8 of us on the team now, dotted around the country. Some of whom, have done some big stuff. I kind of question, like, am I doing enough for the brand? But how it works is Angus very much approached me and Ree and said, will you be ambassadors for the brand? All you've got to do is wear the kit, talk about it, post on Instagram, talk about the kit you like and how you're using it, and just be seen wearing it. And it's a very, very casual relationship. There's no like, you must do this race. There is one race that we do a year, which I'll talk about in a second. But it's very casual, just wear the kit, just talk about it, just give some exposure to it, and yeah, it's very much, I feel like I've got the better half of the deal here. As I said to you at the start, I downloaded Instagram when Angus spoke to me about this. I wasn't on Instagram before. He's like, one of the deals is basically you need to put a post out every week or so, just showing you wearing the kit in North Wales and talking about it. And that's very, very little for the amount of kit that I've actually got from them. So yeah, I'm very lucky. But yeah, the race is a race called the Lap, which is like the flagship race, if you like. It's called the Lap. It's run by a chap called Davey. That's based at Lakeside, Windermere, and it's a race around Windermere, 47 miler. There's one in May. There's one in September. I know it. And that's like the flagship race where we try and get the whole team together to race that event, again, to kind of push the brand. There's also a race in Ireland called the Wicklow Eco Trail, which I'm doing the 47k version of in September, on my birthday, actually, the 24th of September. But the flagship is the lap. And I do have to say, it's an absolute spanker of a race. It's brilliant. It's very well organised. It's a brilliant course. And I've done that 3 times now, and I love it every single time. It's a brilliant race.
It's not the first time it's come up on the podcast, actually, and it's certainly being talked about among our runners that were at UTS that day from our running club. We're potentially looking at traveling and doing that. So, you know, I never know. I might see you guys there from time to time as well. So
I could definitely put you in contact with Angus, who, as I say, is the Dynafit chap who stages the race alongside the race owner, Davey. But it's a tough race to get onto nowadays. Tickets sell out fast. It's a big popular race, and you know, there's some big names appearing on the start list. So yes, it's a good race. It's a tough race, but you know, that's what you want.
Yeah, no, it'd be good to speak to Angus on the show, actually, get him on and hear the passion that he's got for the ultra running world and the brand as well. It'd be really good. So we'll definitely get in contact, and if you can put us in contact, that'd be great. So a couple of quick fire questions for you, just to finish us off. So, what does running mean to you?
Everything. It's brilliant. Running for me is everything. When I'm running, I'm a happier person. I sleep better. I eat better. I work harder. It's just that space, that time, that headspace, that release. If I don't run, I'm less pleasant to be around. It gives me everything. And you know, it's challenge. It's difficult, and I think everybody needs that. Nobody wants cruisy lifestyle. Everyone, you know, so many people nowadays talk about wanting a cushy lifestyle, and I think everyone does want that, but I think you have to earn it. I think everyone's happier with a bit of graft in their life, and running supplies that for me. And as much as anything, myself and Ree, we spend a lot of time together running, and it makes me feel alive. I love it. I love a goal. I love a race. I love something to work towards. It gives me something to do.
Yeah, no, I love that. What a great answer. And yeah, you're right. The time, you probably spend more time together as a partnership and couple than you perhaps would do if you were just working all hours that God sent, right? So,
and it's quality time together, and it's doing something that we love, and it gives us something to talk about.
Yeah.
And she's, you know, she's equally as passionate. She's a physiotherapist and a sports masseuse, which is really useful, of course.
Oh yeah,
but
on tap.
On tap, yeah, you'd like to think so, wouldn't you? But I'll tell you what, she's slacking off recently.
Is she there? Is she there? Is she ain't talking?
I wouldn't dare say this if she was.
Yeah.
No, but you know, of a weekend, going to the city and walking around doing some shopping is my idea of a nightmare. And you know, going out in the van and looking for some new trails, and you know, going out running and emptying the tank and turning up to work on Monday knackered is my way about going life. Not getting knackered by work.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, ultra runners, if you know, you know, it's one of them, because we all love that on a Monday. So yeah, no, brilliant. And then, in terms of a bucket list, have you got a bucket list of races that you want to do? Any to mention in particular that you want to really do?
UTMB, obviously. I'd love to do CCC, UTMB. They're massively on the you know, in the crosshairs. Next year there's a small race near me, actually. I'm not even sure it's a race. It's an Offers Dyke challenge. So start on the north coast of Offers Dyke, and it's a 24-hour challenge. So you've got to travel south and get as far as you can in 24 hours. So I like the idea. That's kind of a slightly different approach to a race. So that really attracts me. I've always been very attracted to the idea of doing the Cape Wrath Trail. I'm not particularly brilliant at multi-days, but I like the Cape Wrath. So it starts in Fort William in Scotland and heads north until he gets to North Coast Cape Wrath. Very rough, rugged kind of race. I think it's becoming more and more popular. It's run by the same guys that do the Dragon's Back. I don't know how well I'd do in it, but it would be tough, and I think it's kind of next level sort of challenge for me. So that's always really appealed.
One of our guests, Helen, she's from my running club. She actually did Cape Wrath this year, and she completed.
Oh, very good. That's impressive.
She actually did it. She could not believe she did it as well, because of what you're saying there as well. You know, sort of the challenge that it poses over the multi days, and the apparently the weather was very bad for that area as well as normal, if that kind of makes sense. So, yeah, no, I'm actually gonna get Helen back on the show, so there'll be a whole episode dedicated to that. So it might be worth listening to what she has to say about it. But
no, 100%.
You know, multi-day events. You know, if you get on that start line, that's already an achievement, right?
Yeah, it's a whole different ballgame, and I think that's a little bit what attracts me to it. I've done a few multi-day events, and I've always struggled. So I think being a runner and being an ultra runner, you are attracted to that side of things where maybe it is you're looking for that limit. I guess you're looking for that where can I get to, what is my limit, and like I know I'd have to work hard for that, and I like that. You know, nothing drives you more than something that is on the limit. So I like the idea of doing something next level. I think you always do, don't you?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And one last question, if you can, off the top of your head, three basic tips for a beginner ultra runner to get into ultra running.
Okay. First one would be don't feel like you always have to run. For me, what I my thing, other than getting home in one piece, is enjoyment. You have to enjoy it, and if you're out, absolutely beasting yourself, and you're not enjoying it, then especially with fell running, accept walking. I teach people on the mountain how to go about going on a day, and I think you should always be able to maintain a conversation if you're on the hill. If you're working really hard all the time, you're not going to enjoy it. And I think the most important thing is that you step out the door. And if you're terrified of stepping out the door because you don't enjoy it, then you're doing something wrong. Walking is allowed. And I always like to think, when you should be walking, when it's okay to walk, and when you shouldn't be walking. But walking is completely allowed. People have this thing in their head that if I'm going for a run, I must run the whole time. I think that's bollocks. I think walking is perfectly acceptable. You have to enjoy it, and I think that's first and foremost. So enjoyment is absolute key. I think for me, my running has improved since running with Ree. The triathlon thing I did, I think I fell out of that a little bit because I did it on my own, and that only gets you so far. Ree drags my sorry ass out regularly, and I wouldn't be the runner I am today without her. So I think having someone, having a hook, having someone that drags you out and gets you going and takes your mind off some negatives, I guess, some the niggly bits, the pain. Having someone to go out and do it with, it makes the experience more whole. It's more of an experience. I enjoy going in the hills much more when I'm sharing it with someone. So first one is just enjoy it, and walking's allowed. Second tip would be to find someone who's equally as passionate as you are and share it with them. Third tip, for ultra running specifically, get good at eating. Get good at eating when you don't want to eat. I think one of my biggest skills in ultra running is my ability to eat when I don't want to. You see so many people bonking, hitting a wall, having a shit time because they haven't eaten enough. If you're getting hungry when you're on an ultra run, then it's far too late. You need to eat when you don't want to. Regular and often, eat. Whatever goes in. Doesn't matter what it is. You can, talk carbs, etc. If you're not putting it in your body, it's worthless. So you just have to make sure you're eating.
Yeah, no. So enjoyment, like-minded people / community, and then learn to eat.
Yeah, nutrition is key.
Yeah, no, awesome. They are 3 great tips that, to be fair, I didn't know any of those things when I went into my first 50 miler, which was my first ever ultra, round Lady Barrow in the Peak District in 2014. And I didn't know that you had to walk up hills. I didn't know that you had to eat in the first 20 miles. I didn't know that you had to sort of try and involve the people that are going past you and try and talk and make conversations. I didn't know any of this stuff. And had I've done, don't get me wrong, I had a great day that day, but I would have had a much better day had I have eaten something in the first 20 miles. There was, oh yeah, no, I can do a marathon without, I've done loads of marathons. I can do a marathon without eating. Like, I can do that. What about the other half? What about the other 24 miles that were left, you know? So yeah, no, I think that is key. And I'm loving that as a kind of 3 tips. That's really good, I think, for any new ultra runner to take, listen to Charlie. Charlie's got it spot on there. And actually some of the earlier stuff he said as well, I think there's some real tangible stuff that people can apply in their sort of training and their approach if indeed ultra running is what they want to do. So last thing, if people want to find out a little bit more about you, Charlie, or follow the Dynafit journey or the Charlie journey, can they do that anywhere?
I guess on my Instagram, I plug in that. I've not done that before. So yeah, my Instagram is charlie.allington.run. Allington is spelled Allington. And you can join one of the 156 followers I have at the moment. So yeah, do that, because I'm sure numbers in that area would really, really do me well, and give me a pat on the back from the boss, because 156, as far as I'm concerned, isn't very high.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's it really. And I guess just look out for anyone wearing Dynafit, and feel more than welcome to come and have a chat. And I promote that. We always want to chat as runners. I think half the reason we do the run is so we can just talk about it and all that stuff. So yeah, I guess just on Instagram and at races. And like I say, the Dynafit team are dotted around the country. We've got Pav in Scotland, we've got Ross and Joel, and one of them in the Lake District. We've got Woody in London. We're all over the place. We're doing the big races, and so do just come and have a chat. We're pretty friendly, most of us.
Yeah, no, brilliant. You guys are great to approach. You got the short straw, because I just got my media pass from Mike at UTS, and you guys got the short straw because you were the first people that I came across as I walked out the tent, and you were kind enough to give me a little interview and have a chat, and I threw you in the deep end, and you all passed with flying colours because, like you said, we like to chat. We like to chat, don't we, as ultra runners? Absolutely.
Yeah.
And well, I think that was kind of one of the jokes that one of my running mates made, that to be fair, Marshy, you love to talk and you love running, so why not make a podcast about running? It kind of makes sense, really. Yeah, so it's all what I need, really. No, it's not. It's all about the people, and it's all about a platform for like you've done today. The information that you've shared has been absolutely priceless, and even for me, learning as we're going through it is still something that I really enjoy, and hopefully the listeners have got the same out of it as well. So really appreciate your time, Charlie, and really appreciate you coming.
Absolutely my pleasure.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And hopefully we'll talk to some of your Dynafit family as well, and Ree herself as well. We'll arrange a time when the Commonwealth Games isn't getting in the way. So because I understand you guys have had a bit of fun there recently as well.
We watched the men's 10,000. Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, no, I bet it was
absolutely incredible.
Awesome. So cheers, Charlie. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks so much, Neil.
Thanks to all the listeners that are listening, or those of you that are watching on YouTube. We really appreciate you coming on and having a listen. If you did enjoy the show, and there's anyone that you guys think will enjoy what Charlie's had to say, if you guys could just share that to anyone via email, tag on Instagram, tag on social media, that'd be really appreciated. And hopefully we can all meet here again to discuss more on the Ultra Running Podcast with me, Coach Marshy.